time to start getting seats and interior out of this thing. Probably going to leave the hatch on, but the bimini and the back seats, they all need to come out. So we'll start a little time lapse and we can power through getting all these seats out. Bring you guys in and you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. So a little backstory: when we first bought the boat, the very first thing I did was I hopped in the boat and I kind of just jumped around like I am right now, and you can kind of see all of that moving there. And I'm jumping around in the boat and everything felt like really solid, so I was pretty happy with that. We bought the boat and we got through our first season, and at the end of the year I kind of do like a little bit of a cleanup in here, just vacuum it out, make sure it's not too bad for next year. I don't want just dirt sitting in here all the year. And I'm vacuuming and I find some weird random steps in the floor, and I go to start peeling up carpet, and someone had laid 2 4x8 sheets in here. Well, they obviously weren't 8 foot long or wide, but you get what I mean. There was a sheet here and a sheet here, and there was a little step in the carpet right about here. So I pulled the seats out and I started to investigate, and what they did is they just laid new plywood on top of the old rotten stuff, cut a hole in it for a ski locker, and well, they just ran it that way instead of replacing the floor. And once I got it out, I kind of thought, well, it was a cheap boat, I might as well just kind of leave it, and it kind of started to bother me a little bit. So ended up taking everything out and, you know, just started kind of gutting the entire boat. Got to the back of the boat and the transom was literally just falling off like paper. So transom came out, and then I just kind of kept cutting the floor out until I stopped seeing rot, and the entire floor front to back completely rotted. It was a little harder to notice up front here just because the stringers are they're so close together. It was what it was. And once we got the floor out, we discovered stringers were completely rotten out as well. So we just went ahead, started cutting everything out of it. I'll throw some pictures in. But what I messed up on was the sheet of plywood they had just put in there as a temporary floor, I was like, well, I'm gonna use it. One of them didn't seem so bad. It seemed fairly decent. And from here, right about here to, well, where it stops getting all soft and shit, that is one sheet of plywood that I put in there knowing that it was already used. And well, it kind of came back and bit me in the ass a little bit, because now I need to cut all of that out, and hopefully it didn't spread back, and hopefully it didn't spread too far forward. I put this bulkhead in here. I, for some reason, didn't glass over the top of it or seal it very well, so water has just been kind of seeping in there. Partially my fault. I don't like vacuuming things. That's why I put in this EVA foam flooring. I think that's what it is. I just wanted to test it out, so I just ordered a bunch of it on Amazon just to see if I would like it, make sure it didn't get too hot, we could walk on it, you know, when it's been baking in 110-degree sun all day. And my only complaint is it's not wide enough. For one, you can see where the seats are. I think it was only, you know, 30 inches wide or something like that, so everything's kind of scabbed together. And where it was scabbed together, the adhesive, not very great. So that's fine. I knew it wasn't going to be a long-term flooring in here. I just wanted like a proof of concept, I guess, which is kind of what I've done with a lot of this boat. Make sure something works before I go ahead and spend a lot of money on it. With the exception of that shifter, I kind of just, that happened. So yeah. So now I'll go ahead, set you guys back up on a time lapse. I will get all of this foam off of the ground, and we'll see how far back we need to cut. Okay, so we got that out. There was some spots where that glue held really well, so that tells me I didn't prep the floor well enough, or the very first gel coat that I did on this boat was the transom, and probably up until this area here where you can kind of see like a pencil line. I used a PVA to coat the gel coat, and I don't think it actually fully cured, and I think that is part of the reason why the gel coat is coming up with it. That, or I just did a really shitty job, probably that one. The rest of the boat I got an actual top coat, gel coat, so the final coat everything should have cured properly. And it's probably cracking also because of how much, like that's moving a good 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch down when I step on it. I am a pretty big guy, so there's a lot of weight. So I'm just gonna grab a Sawzall and I'm just gonna cut that way. I have to be careful because the angle of the bottom of the boat, it gets kind of steep really quickly, so I don't want to cut into the bottom of the boat. So I think the goal is to cut from here, probably probably right into here. And then we're just gonna go from there. You're gonna see my ass cracked. It is what it is. Let's do something like that. Yes, I'm. What's going on? Just to cut a little section out. So it's wet, it's soaked. Kind of cut into the stringer a little bit. We can repair that. Not the end of the world. This side actually still looks pretty good. So what I'll probably do, I'm just gonna follow that stringer all the way back, and then once I get kind of everything cut out where I think it needs to be, we'll grab a saw and we'll cut a nice straight line, so when we tie everything in, kind of looks a little bit nicer, a little bit easier to fit everything back in there. Alright, so had some camera difficulties. It decided to die, and then after it turned on, it decided to update. So this is where I'm at. I was cutting out just this little pocket here just to see how far in I could go without cutting the actual the hull of the boat. Just trying to be a little careful there. So now I have a good idea of where it's at. So I think I'm just gonna grab the Sawzall and then just take it and run a nice straight line all the way down and back and get this section cut out. And then I haven't really figured out how I'm gonna get the last little bit of wood out without hurting the bottom of the boat, but we're gonna figure that out when we get there. And then I grabbed a battery. I'd like to have the batteries kind of side by side in here, so I don't know, I might build a compartment for it. It's kind of really close to the floor level. Once they're both in here, it'll probably come up a little bit higher. It would actually need to come, the battery would have to come back up in here because the back seat sits right on that area, and I wouldn't want to pull everything out of the back seat just to get to the batteries. I always disconnect the batteries. The boat usually stays in Havasu for the summer, and batteries get disconnected, and I don't want to have to pull everything out every time just to get to the batteries. I don't know, we'll see. I just got a new charger for the batteries actually, so they might be staying connected. I do have a Perco switch back here, so I am able to turn everything off. Yeah, I gotta think about that one some more. So let's get back to cutting, throw you back on a time lapse, and internet magic will allow me to have all of it cut out, and then I'll bring you guys back in and you can see it. here's where we're at after fighting this for quite a while. I guess what I did when I put the floor in was I ground the 3/4 inch plywood at an angle so that it could sit flush up against the bottom of the boat. So it just took me a while, just trying to carefully cut with a Sawzall, making sure not to actually cut the bottom of the boat here. So now that I have that kind of figured out where that's going to be, I think I'm just going to grab a cutoff wheel and cut the top layer of 1708 off. Hopefully I'm getting like kind of a pry bar in here, and I'm able to get this first layer somewhat off, so then I can just start slowly cutting it away with a cutoff wheel. I'm gonna have to go back further than I really wanted to. The back of the boat there is starting to delaminate, so that's rotted out. I mean, it is what it is. So I just don't like using a cutoff wheel in a boat with fiberglass. It gets everywhere, so I'm going to try and set it up to where as I'm cutting, I have a vacuum right behind me trying to collect as much of that dust as possible. I know it's not great to breathe in, and I'm not wearing a respirator, so yeah, this is kind of where we're at. I knew this part was going to take a little bit of time, just to kind of get it figured out where I can safely cut. I'd rather take my time a little bit more now, figure out where I can cut, than have to fix holes in the bottom of the boat. So I'm going to try and get you in a different position for time lapse, and we'll keep going. it's the next morning, and after thinking about it overnight, looking at these batteries, it's just not going to work. So I got that cut back to good wood. I just need to put a nice straight cut on there, and we can tie our new wood in. Probably going to do some sort of 1x or 2x underneath there in the junction, and to tie those in together. Up here we'll do the same thing. There's already a 1x underneath here to tie in both of these pieces, so I'll just draw a chalk line straight across both sides and get that cut up so our new piece of plywood can go up to it. As far as the edges, I'll probably grab a DA with some 36 grit on it, get rid of at least the gel coat that's on there, get everything nice and prepped, and start getting our plywood fitting. The batteries, I'm gonna see after I get this bulkhead cut out if the batteries maybe can fit right underneath the crankshaft there. I'd really like them somewhere else besides the compartment back there, but it is what it is, and we'll make them fit wherever we can. So back on the time lapse, and let's get that cut out and see what we can do. Alright, ideas and thoughts have changed. I've always wanted to put a ski pole in this boat, and before I put the floor in and the new bulkhead, we're going to make a bracket for that. The batteries are now going to be put in the corners here to open up some more room. So we'll figure that out. And then we will be building a new hatch. This top portion of the seat will now be part of the hatch, so it will all open up, and we will build a new box here that'll just stay in the floor there. The ski pole is going to go as far back as we can possibly get it. I'll probably make a video on how I'm going to make that and the thought process behind that. So yeah, ideas have changed. It has now evolved from just a floor into redoing pretty much everything, so stay tuned.